Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, here we have after market close on Thursday, November 11th. We're going to take a look at RDW today. So RDW had a big sell-off yesterday, down over 16%, followed by almost 9% on the upside today. That said, that sell-off volume yesterday was about almost, well, a solid, say, 1.5 times what the buy volume was today. So 3.1 million in volume yesterday during the sell-off, and about 1.4 in buy volume coming in today. But that's probably still being calculated and trickling in, so that number will probably be higher when all is said and done. But I wanted to come in, RDW was requested by somebody, so I wanted to take a look for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's in an interesting situation here, but then also I thought we would plot some areas on the chart that could be interesting and sort of see, how RDW might work its way through any of these price points and what direction it might be headed. So if you're unaware, which you probably are aware by now, but they delayed their earnings, and I guess obviously that's that's never going to be received well by the market, so hence the big sell-off. I don't know if they've rescheduled it at this point. I didn't have a time to take a look or anything like that, but I think there's a couple of things to note here. So let's start to put in some trend lines and some markers and see where we get to. So 878's on the downside. So we have like an uptrend that was following here, which it may flip to kind of an uptrend resistance. That's a pretty common thing that we see, especially if it splits a gap, which you see here, where previous uptrend support, gap down, then creates uptrend resistance level. That is if the stock begins recovering to the upside, of course. Now, interestingly enough, and this is a super young trend line because it's really just yesterday's candle and today's candle, but it at least gives us an opportunity to say, is it going to have this really steep kind of movement? Is it going to develop in some other channel? But if not, there's a couple of things. It'll sort of squeeze itself between this uptrend channel and this the lower point of this gap down. So this be like a little bit of a channel up here and then sort of like a flat top out. So that could give it a nice acceleration through this gap if it's able to hit that, and that might put it into this area where it's going to intersect with a super steep or super parabolic-ish uptrend with the previous kind of more relaxed uptrend support, which could again provide a big kind of movement. Now, it doesn't have to be a movement to the upside. This, even in here, this could come up and could fall really strongly out the bottom of this support. But this, again, is very nascent support, so it's sort of a question of even how that's going to evolve, but we'll leave it there for now, just for good measure, to say, it has the opportunity to develop something here. Whether it will or not, who knows? But this 1218 level is going to be a pretty strong one, in my opinion. You see previous support, flip to resistance, support, support, resistance, resistance, resistance. So it's encompassed both support and resistance several times along the path here for RDW. So those tend to be the ones that I like to pay the most mind to. And then right about here, 1314, you see it's flipping this support to resistance, resistance to support, flipped resistance, tried to catch support here, turn it back to resistance, confirm that resistance, then sold off pretty heavy. So, it's just interesting also that it was starting to sell off a bit. It was barely red on this day, but down about 1.75%, but down over 4% on this day, followed by down over 2.5% the next day, and then the news came out and it really plummeted. So it was kind of already pulling back a bit, which is interesting. And if you see this kind of downtrend that was presenting itself. There's just so much erratic activity lately that there's kind of a lot happening, as you see. But to my mind, the best possibility for the bulls is it follows this uptrend support through the gap. They remedy their earnings situation, whatever snafu that was. Again, this is the bullish scenario, was relatively minimal, and they just kind of like work through it and carry on. And it works itself through this gap and starts to try to test that 1218 level. To the downside, it could certainly fall right back through this support like immediately. There's not much really holding it in place there. There's a pretty strong support level right around here at 1024. You see support here, resistance here, support back here, support back here. That was previous resistance, right? So it's a pretty strong level. Down from there, I would say this is the next really strong level, right at $10. You see, I guess that's about where it caught support yesterday, 993, but support here, that was resistance here, that was support here, that flipped to resistance here, that was support back here. So that's an incredibly strong support level and is a strong, probably psychological level, just with folks thinking about the stock breaking the $10 mark is probably kind of, like I said, a point at which folks might start to step in and buy at that level, just saying like, oh, this is worth more than $10, or whatever. But 949 would be the other level to the downside that I would see if it needs additional support. Now, back here is not going to help us out much, but we have a little bit to go off of here. That's actually some pretty good flipping. Support to resistance, and then support to resistance. And so that's sort of worked itself through a few times. So that's what I would see to the upside and the downside. We're sort of smack dab in the middle of these at the moment. But it'll be interesting to see how it works its way through this. I think it's predominantly going to be driven by how quickly they can reschedule this earnings call. Maybe they already have. Feel free to drop a comment below if that's the case. I wasn't super going in depth on the news side of things. I just wanted to see what in the world happened by an employee of potential accounting issues. Interesting. So I don't know. That doesn't look great, but you never know. The other side of things is, if they can get that remedied relatively quickly, then it can sort of get back to normal and sort of see just what the kind of natural reaction to earnings is and go from there. But if not, I think the longer that it drags out, the more challenging it's going to be for folks to come in. I could be totally wrong in that. I'm not super familiar with the stock or the personality, the trading profile. So that could be wrong, but just on its face, that's what I would speculate on. But we'll see what they're able to do. Now, we're going to flip over and take a look at the data on Ortex. Before we do that, folks often ask how they can support the channel, and of course I appreciate that a ton. There's a couple of ways. One, just sharing these videos if you find any of them interesting. StockTwits, Reddit, Twitter, wherever you share or read or watch stock info and you're able to share it there, that would be cool. Another way is, my Venmo in the description below. Some folks have wondered how they could just contribute and sort of help support the channel. I'll also be having a Patreon come out probably in, say, 2 to 4 weeks, and I'll be sharing that when that comes out. But of course, subscribing and turning on the notifications will help us sort of stay connected as well here. Patreon and all that won't change the free YouTube videos and the free Twitter chart shares and things like that. Those will still remain, so those won't go away. Okay, old Ortex is showing us here, bit up 8% over the last month, so pretty solid there. Some insider buys in the last 12 months, so that's could be seen as a solid sign. No updates today, I think because of the bank holiday. I don't know, but that's my speculation. Utilization, though, quite high on the short side of things, over 91, and cost to borrow also getting up there. It's in double digits. That could start to get really interesting if that gets above 40, 50, 60, or even into the triple digits. That could be pretty interesting. That said, shorts aren't holding onto their shares very long, 1.56 days to cover, so it's not like they're putting a bunch of pressure on by holding these for a super long time. But they do have, since I can't see the update today, estimated short interest percentage of the free float 5.91, so pretty small. And so if that's relatively still the case, then that would, kind of hold true. I don't know if there was a huge jump yesterday when the news dropped, or I guess when the stock dropped on the news, if shorts kind of piled in, thinking maybe there's more systemic issue with the company itself or with some of their practices or execution or whatnot. But, and obviously now you have investigations coming and, lawyers collecting info. So I would just be aware of how that plays out, and watch the short interest, watch for anything like a short seller report coming out. It's like those are just, it seems like these things kind of get teed up for that thing to kind of drop on the heads of retail. But, do your due diligence and figure out what you think the right positioning is for yourself, of course. But that's RDW as I see it on the chart. There's a ton of different things to play out here, and many of these will probably bust and something else will hold true, and I'll be happy to come back and kind of reevaluate it when the time comes. All right, folks, well, I really appreciate you watching, and I hope that you're able to finish your trading week off strong tomorrow, and I will see you in the next video.